you're ready.
We're ready. I'm glad you brought this because the one that you sent me did come out very clear. So I'm glad
Yeah, we
we have
did
this.
11 by 17 for original.
Yeah. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:40. So let's establish a quorum.
Stephen Moore, here. Lawrence Perkins,
Here.
Brandon
Yeah.
Carlson,
Here.
Heinz Roche,
Here.
Marissa Menzik,
Here.
Linda Vincenzo,
Here.
and Laura Swinton is absent. I certify that there is a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any public announcements? No? Public comments? And the first one here is Wendy Smith. That's me too, they have here. Let's give her a microphone. Too. I'm sorry. Okay. Just gonna fill it. How would we get her a microphone, Lauren?
So,
How can we get her a microphone? We got coming loose there, good.
working on
Yes, it's working.
we may move this around. Motor. Well, that's okay.
So good. Okay. All right. So my name is Wendy Smith, and my spouse and I and some of my neighbors are here to talk about the request for annexation of a 4.09 piece of property that's owned by Callan McNett and Clint West. The address of that property is 1668 Rocky Road. My husband and I, our land runs adjacent to theirs, so we share a property line. And it's recently come to our attention that somehow Callan and Clint quietly divided the original 9.88 acre tract into a 5.79 acre tract and a 4.09 acre tract. There are deed restrictions on this property. They are a real covenant and inseparable once the covenant is recorded, and that was recorded on 11/15/99. The deed restrictions clearly state no property in this addition may be divided into less than 5 acre tracts. Callan and Clint have shown a blatant disregard to the legally binding restrictions. There are restrictions that run with the land for 30 years, after which they will be automatically renewed every 10 years. Amendments after that time period, which would be November 15th of 29, would need to go before all of the landowners if there are any changes. It appears that there have been multiple failures that have brought us to this point. First of all, Clint and Callan decision to ignore the restrictions The subdivision that they've made appears to have been created without a title commitment. So nobody along the way has looked at any of the restrictions. Not the realtor, the surveyor, the title company, or the city and the mayor. Decisions have been made without all the legal information. Documents were signed and filed without the facts. This is a very irresponsible way to conduct business, and actions have consequences. The other property owners here tonight, along with Zane and I, have owned our properties for 20 plus years. We have respect for the legally binding deed restrictions, and we expect the others that own property up there to have it as well. I think Callan and Clint bought this property in October of last year. October 28th, I believe, is when their deed was signed. So I'm asking that you vote no regarding this annexation of the 4.609 illegally divided parcel of land, because the original parcel at 9.88 acres was already divided as far as it could legally go. And in here, the packet that I gave y'all, of course, has the map and shows where we are in the county. But then we have the plat, and the plat where they sold off the back part. I guess they created Rocky Roads Estates, and they sold the back 5.79 acres. And then that leaves them with this lot. And we have a lot of concerns too about what they want to do on that. I mean, we've all lived up there forever. We bought this place because of the restrictions. We weren't going to have houses right next to us. And we're here and they want to put multiple houses on this. We've heard lots of different things. And I mean, that's not acceptable. It's not legal. So included here too are the restrictions. We have the deeds that Callan and Clint, when they bought the property, it clearly mentions restrictions. And then when they sold the other part and divided it up, that deed's in there. And the original restrictions are on the last part from 1999. And that's all I have to say, I guess.
Thank you for the documents and for coming tonight. Gail McKillen.
I'm pretty much going to say about the same thing she said. We own 10 acres at 1423 Country Road. Our neighbors are the Schwins and the De Leons. We bought this property in January of 2000. There were a list of covenants. There still are a list of covenants that property owners promised to honor. The one that's addressed tonight is the 5-acre limit of subdivision. You can't subdivide less than 5 acres, and that's one reason we loved it. The property at 1668 Rocky Road that is being in question is they're wanting a subdivision, but we're already a subdivision. All of the tracts on that property, including Callan and Clint, are the Blanco estates. So I don't know the laws about putting a subdivision on top of a subdivision, but at any rate, I don't know any of the laws. That's Wendy, she's our lawyer. So deed restrictions were set in November of 1999, and they're for 30 years, just like Wendy said. I feel certain that the men proposing this property development knew that. But I don't know for sure. So I don't know where the letdown was, but I'm pretty sure they knew that. But they sold a house and 5+ acres and left 4+ acres. That is totally against all the covenants. And it seems to be fraud almost to me, because I don't know how they didn't know it. At the least, it is a blatant disregard for the neighbors who are honoring their covenants. It comes across as a scam. The sellers, the buyers, the realtor who sold it, the bank, the title company, whoever was involved, none of them did their due diligence to find the covenants. Or we wouldn't be in front of you right now, because they could have come to us, because if everybody agrees on something, I don't know for sure this is right, but I think it can do it. You know, to me, it's a case of right or wrong. And in our country today, nobody goes by right or wrong. They go by, can I make $1? is this to my benefit? It doesn't matter who I hurt, but right and wrong, you do what's right, regardless of if you lose or not. You just do what's right. And this is a wrong that needs to be righted. And I don't know the legal procedures to right it, but there's got to be some somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Diane Schmidt.
My husband and I own 17.2 acres. So we're on the end next to the spillway of these properties. And I have our restrictions, our copy of the restrictions, and they were filed the 29th of December of 99. And number 14 says no tract may be subdivided into a tract of less than 5 acres. So that's the bottom line. And this can't even be considered for subdivision. It is, as Gail said, already subdivided and can be no smaller than 5 acres. That's it.
Thank you. Zane Smith.
Hi, Zane Smith and my wife Wendy, she spoke first. I just want to say that it's up to the buyers to be responsible for the knowledge of all the restrictions on the property and along with the realtor. And I know something happened here. There was a big breakdown. And I just would hope y'all would not go forward with any action on this property until it's sorted out. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Zane. We can't respond to you this evening, of course, but thank you for the information and we'll pass it on to City Hall.
Thank you.
Um, We'll open the public hearing at 10 till 7. And is anyone here, Warren, to speak to the food court?
So Gary Unterbrink, and if I said that wrong, okay. He's here, and if you want him to speak now, he can explain the project, or if you want to wait until I make the presentation and we can do it under new business, however you want to do that. It's up to you. So he's here to speak on the project, but if you want him to speak during the actual business, that's okay. If you want him to speak now, he can too.
Whatever.
Let's have him speak during new business.
New business, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
No, so we'll have no one to speak at the public hearing. Okay, then we'll close the public hearing at 6:51. Then we'll open the regular meeting and go into old business. And this is going to be, was anybody here for the voluntary annexation?
So I'd spoken to Mr. McNett. This is tabled. Again, we didn't have all the information that we needed. In light of new information we've been provided, we'll review that and then get back to you next month.
So is next month going to be, that'll be the third time
And
that
that will be
tabled?
it. It'll either happen or it won't, and we're going to look at all the information that's been provided,
Okay,
and we'll let you know.
thank you. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
so we'll table that. So let's move into new business. And y'all have copies of the minutes for September. Everyone's had a chance to see those, or can I hear a motion on the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Hines moved to approve the minutes as they are, and Lynn second them. Do we have any further conversation? All in favor?
Right.
Unanimous. Okay, so the second thing on the agenda for the new business is discussion and take action on approval of a special use permit to allow for a food court located at John Taylor Addition Block 2, Lot 1, property located in R5, and the owner is Andrew Forsberg and Clint West, Shrimpies, Inc.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. So as you know, this is an R5. Specifically, it's a half-acre block that is located north of 4th Street and west of Elm Street. So it's on that corner, which is mostly commercial, but it's R5, which is, as you know, transition. So to explain to you what normally happens, when we get an application in, we'll take a look at it. And in this case, it was for a mobile food vending unit a couple months ago. Met with Mr. West, and as if you look at the actual that part of the ordinance, it does state that if you have a mobile food vendor for more than 10 days, they have to ask for something that what we call an SUP, a special use permit. So it's allowed in the R5 as a special use, but not by right. So what you actually have in front of you, and it's 11 by 17, and sorry about the late date of getting it to you. What you actually have is really kind of a little bit of a site plan that shows, and Mr. West can explain this a lot better than me, but it basically shows 5 different mobile units. I think he's going to start with 1, but in the end, it's going to be 5. There'll be a proposed pavilion, which is required. There'll be parking, which is also required. And there'll be an ingress and egress on both 4th Street and Elm Street. As I mentioned to you before, we handle any of our ingress and egress on our local streets. 4th Street, they'll actually have to get approval from TxDOT. I think there is a curb cut there now, but they'll just need to get that reviewed by TxDOT as well. So this is, I don't think we've had a food court, and think he did his best to kind of show that the setbacks. And so what I would say is this meets, as of what we can tell here, it looks like it meets all the requirements. What you as a council, and excuse me, as a planning commission will need to do, P&Z is to look at the area. Again, most of this is commercial around there. I think the only home, he can speak better to this, is I think directly behind it there is a home. But notification was provided to everybody, and we have not received any information or anybody that's objected to this project from the neighbors around. So since I'm not here to advocate for the project, I'm just here to explain it to you. Mr. West, you like to kind of present some information and give us a better understanding of what you're trying to do? Sure. Okay, great.
Evening. My name is Gary Underbrink, and we're my wife and I and family are recent transplants here from South Texas. We've been here a year and a half, and by trade, I'm a real estate appraiser. So that's what I do for a living. What you see in front of you, the mobile food court, it's like Warren said, it's going to start off with, if approved, it'll start off with the one Shrimpies trailer, which is a seafood style restaurant or a food truck trailer. And every 6 months we'll add another food trailer to the food court. The benefit of doing this under one roof would be able to offer, so for management purposes, to be able to manage multiple units under the same leadership. In addition, the jobs that we'll offer, we'll go through a PEO and offer, jobs with benefits like health insurance for our employees and stuff like that. And reason why we can do that is because it won't be my sole income, because like I said, I do have another business that we that provides our income. So, I mean, if you have any questions, I'm all for that. Like I said, there's going to be, 5 total, a proposed pavilion, restrooms built into the pavilion, as per the, zoning requirements. Because you can have porta potties, but you can't have, I don't know if you guys have been to the Salt Lick where they have, trailers with restrooms in there. That's not allowed per the zoning. So whenever we build the pavilion, there will be restrooms in there. And like I said, it's a way to offer multiple food choices under one roof, lower costs, and better jobs. That for that reason.
Commissioners, do you have questions? Go.
So with your initial plan is to start with one trailer. Are you proposing to have those porta potties there with the one trailer?
Yes, we do have to have some type of a restroom facility, even though there's just one food trailer there, along with the covered seating per the zoning requirements. All that will be in place. Yes, ma'am.
So if the pavilion's required, as you stated.
It is.
I mean, what if that never happens? Is it just gonna be a free trailer and 2 porta potties out on the street?
If it doesn't
How would that
happen,
work?
it wouldn't. It wouldn't. Like I said, this is all based on multiple units. I can't pay somebody to manage just one unit. It doesn't. You can't pay somebody enough to. There's not enough revenue there to pay a qualified individual the salary that position would deserve to manage just one. If it doesn't work, then it just doesn't work. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. I mean, this is 5 or none, type deal.
How many parking spaces? Is it just 2?
So there's a couple parking spaces on property. There's also parking along the street. And then where this is located, there's also additional public parking across this on the other side of Elm.
And is there a requirement for how many parking spaces are meant to be provided?
Not that I've read.
And also, what is the speed limit right there in front of that location?
Sorry, I'm not. Let me see if I can answer this. So the speed limit, I believe on 4th Street is 35. I didn't see a posted speed limit on Elm, so if there's no posted speed limit, then the assumption is 30 miles an hour. That's state of Texas rules. The amount of parking, I actually thought it was one. I think it's one space. I believe it's one space per food truck, but we'd have to look into that. One thing I will mention is that what you're looking at is you're looking at the concept. We're gonna permit it later on. So I can't tell you everything because there's not a ton of detail on there. So we would have to make sure that he had enough parking based on how many trailers that he wants to put. But what you're as a commissioner should be looking at is, does this work? Does this type of project work with what is surrounding?
So you're not asking us to approve it tonight. We're just going to listen to it. Of course, we don't have all the paperwork and it doesn't have all the diagrams. It doesn't have all the information. Is that right?
So you can approve it, deny it, or you can table it and ask them for more information. So and then you wouldn't be approving it, you'd be sending it to council. So, but you can certainly, but the answer is that this is the information I have been provided. And you can make a decision from here, or you can decide to defer it. There's no 30-day timetable because this is not a plat and this is not a set of plans. This is just a special use permit. So you can certainly table it if that's what you want to do.
And to clarify, am I correct in assuming the public parking that you're referring to across the street, that's just those 7 parking spots which are perpendicular to Elm Street?
Yes, not the parking lot. No,
That's private property.
that is correct. That is correct. So And I welcome any other questions anybody has in regards to it. Like I said, it's, we moved here to Blanco. There's not much open on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for eating. It seems like everything's open on the weekends, which I understand. It's a tourist type, but some more options would be great. And instead of having a brick and mortar for 6 different restaurants, financially it just makes more sense to have, management over a mobile food court,
To understand this, drawing here correctly, on the east side you have Elm Street, on the west side, would that be Hackberry, or is it only half of the lots?
So yeah, if we're looking at this, let's see, you're talking about north, south, east. It's gonna be,
Elm Street is east.
so Elm
Fourth
Street,
Street is south,
yes, that is correct.
so it goes all the way over to Hackberry,
It does not. It goes to,
halfway to that block.
that's correct.
This day, yeah.
Oh,
Printed the map
sorry.
for you from the back.
Read before you speak. All right. Okay, understood. Yeah.
So what's happening with storage on the site? If you're not building the pavilion, what we do with storage of food supplies, deliveries, things like that?
Most of that right now will be it'll be housed at my house. Everything will have, there's, freezers, refrigerators inside for, food goods, and there is limited storage inside, the trailers. I mean, they're not cheap. Everything in there's brand new. It's not a piecemeal, piece of equipment. I mean, they're very expensive when you do them correctly. The unit has fire suppression inside, automatic. It has full ventilation. I mean, it's a $50,000 unit easy.
So you're intending to store within the trailer, or are you intending to add storage units around for the trailers? For your intent right now?
Right now, anything that we won't need on location, I'll store at the house until we can get, the pavilion built with, climate controlled storage.
Where's your house?
It's in Rock and J.
Is the pavilion gonna provide seating for patrons?
There'll be limited seating in there, and then also like a place for cornhole, maybe a small stage for some local live entertainment, things like that.
Well, my only, I mean, I like the concept, but my only concern is if you've got people coming for to-go orders and you've got people coming to sit there with 5 food trucks, you've only got access to about, it looks like 6 parking spaces. So traffic could easily back up onto 4th Street. So I would like to, I think parking and accessibility seems to be an issue. I mean, that's gonna become, 4th Street right there is already, that's why it's an R5, I assume, because of that issue. It's very congested right there, a lot of truck traffic, a lot of school traffic. So I'm just kind of wondering what that would do to the traffic of Blanco if we don't have proper, parking.
So first of all, just make sure I heard you correct. Every mobile food vending unit that's there has to be a walk-up. There can't be a barista.
No, I
driving
understand
out.
that.
So what you're gonna have people entering the site, parking, and then walking.
But 2 people can only park there. That's the,
Well, he's talking about through the driveway, are you not? You're thinking that through this drive, people
Well,
are gonna
we're
park?
gonna have a driveway for deliveries and stuff, because you don't want those trucks, like the big Cisco truck. You don't want that sitting on the,
So are your customers gonna park in here or not?
they will have the ability to, but I mean, that will be primarily used for deliveries. Because we can't have per zoning, we can't have a quote unquote drive-through. So I'm kind of in a predicament there, is that considered drive-through, or is that considered parking and to-go orders, so.
Well, if
I'm-
they drive up and park and walk up to the mobile truck, how is that? Is that fine with the city or not fine with the city? If they drive in here and park and walk over to the mobile food truck
Yes.
to get their food, Is that permitted?
That is permitted. What is not permitted is, like I said, an actual drive-through, we actually have pedestrians walking in. So you can have people park and then, just like you would at a restaurant, and then walk up to the food trail.
So he might have to make this wider where a car can pull off and stop. I just know at the other food trucks that we have in Blanco right now, you can pull up right next to them and you get out and you go up there and you order your food and you go back and get in them. So, but somebody, like she said, there's only going to be 5 across the street.
May not be, so this is the thing, may not be enough parking for how many units he wants. So I have an acre, and we actually, I've driven the site several times and trying to imagine how this would work, but I'm not going on as far as how the placement would be, so, I don't have the answers, I guess I should say.
Pardon me? Okay, so y'all have any more questions? Lars thinks that we should table it until we get more firm drawing and how this is going to work and when it's going to happen. Is that right, Lars?
So if we're gonna table it, let's specifically tell Mr. Underbrink what we're expecting to see.
Well, my only concern with it right now would be having the porta potties and the dumpsters stuck right out there on 4th Street up front and center. So that part of the concept, I'm personally not real thrilled about because the proposed pavilion may never happen. So that would be probably my biggest concern. And then the traffic on that corner, if there's not enough parking. Those would be my 2 things.
So let's talk about the permitting. What one unit won't be permitted until everything has been completed. So you'd have to have a pavilion or some kind of covered, I know it's a pavilion, with some kind of covered seating. You'd have to have a porta potty. And then again, if he doesn't have enough parking, then he just won't be getting more units. So we'll have to look at the parking, but just letting you know how that would work. Just specifically, I guess what we'll need to look at if unless the decision is to move this to council, but you would need to make sure there enough parking for the 5, because maybe he ends up only having 4 units and maybe that's not worth it or whatever, 3 or whatever. And then we need to look at some of these other smaller issues, which is walkability, and then looking at what things get covered, and you know, the trash enclosure. There should be a trash enclosure for the dumpster, but things like that, we can clean that up. But that's up to you what you want to do.
Well, I'm now, Commission, you can help me here, but I don't see how we can give a special use permit when number 1, there isn't enough parking. Number 2, the pavilion isn't even scheduled to be until 2023 or 2024. So that's a misnomer. We don't have any clue when that's going to happen. And like she said, having the porta potty out by 281 is not too good. And the parking issue is a problem. And we don't, June 23, June 24, June 23. I just think that trying to give him an SUV, a special use permit, and we don't have that information, and he doesn't have that information. He himself said he didn't know when or if the pavilion would be built, depending on if the project works.
So the main issues are parking and the timing of putting in the amenities, correct? Those are the 2 major issues.
Well, not only that, we don't know. I mean, right now you're only going to have 1 unit. He's already said 2023 before he even considers the other units.
Yeah, those are like worst case scenario. I mean, worst case scenario dates and times. I mean, so from my understanding, in applying for this, a food trailer is allowed, but for only 10 days at a time. So I'm applying to have the food trailer there longer than that. Number 1, the first one. And then, yes, to also do the special use permit for the food court itself. Now, the design can change I'm not sold on that. I mean, that's not concrete in stone. I was told to come up with a concept plan. So that's what I've done. In addition to that,
Warren, did you have a conversation with this gentleman that he could have one food truck there and he would not have to have a court until he got the rest of this stuff in? He could have a food truck there as we do at other places in Blanco?
according to zoning, for 10 days, as long as the food trailer is not there longer than 10 days, from my understanding, that's allowed per the zoning that's there. Now, I'm asking, so I don't have to take it. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, because since you're going over 10 days, is that where the porta potty requirement comes in, or where does, like, do the other food trucks have porta potties and we just don't see them, or
So
what is that?
There's two issues. For any, and I'm not saying that all current food trucks have done this, because obviously some came before this ordinance, okay? But right now, if you wanted to have a food trailer and it's gonna be there for more than 10 days, you'd have to get what we call an SUP, a special use permit to allow that. That doesn't mean it's a food court, okay? So when Mr. Endenbrink talked to me with his general contractor, Andrew Forsman, they discussed having kind of a phased plan. But you could have, so this is the thing, you're looking at the food court, and that is the plan that you have in front of you. If the decision is that going through this, he can't do a food court, that he just might ask for an SUP for just one food trailer. So if he just came with just one, he still have to come before this board and then to council, but it wouldn't be a food court. A food court requires seating, pavilion, or some kind of covered seating, requires porta potty, and then this parking. One, as you know, does not. It doesn't require much of anything other than, and the reason why you have to get an SUP for a mobile food court that isn't mobile is because it's not mobile. If you were to move around, you wouldn't need an SUP, because you would be acting like an actual mobile food vending unit.
And so I don't understand, since the other concept is not done yet. You do not have the drawings, you do not have anything to do a food court. Why is he opposed, or why are you not asking him to do a food truck until he gets all of his ducks lined up where he can produce a food court?
So I first came to Warren with the whole concept, and we would like to phase it in, because it's not an inexpensive venture to build all this and to buy. I mean, like I said, these trailers are $50,000 a piece if you do them right. I'm talking about having 5 or 6 of them. That's $300,000. That's a lot of money. So my point or position would be, is it possible to phase this in? Is it possible to start with one? So that's why we came up with the site plan for a food court, so we could have approval on that and move them in every 6 months. If you notice, that's kind of the timeline on the dates that you see there. If you're saying that, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, just, I don't know what else I can.
Are you planning to operate all of these food trailers yourself, or are you planning to subcontract with other vendors?
That's kind of why I led with that. This isn't my primary line of business. I personally want some more food options in Blanco. In order, like I said, to pay management or a manager to manage these, you'd have to have more than one. Because one single trailer is not going to pay a salary, benefits, all that stuff. It's just not going to happen. I mean, that costs a lot of money. So you have to have more than one to disperse that cost out. Yes, ma'am, sorry.
And my question was similar to his. Will all these food trailers be owned by you?
Yes.
Or will you be subbing out the property for usage by other food trucks to see if the concept works?
No, it'll all be under me. That way I can spread the cost of management and cross-train employees for different lines of work through all the different food trailers.
But your idea is that each food trailer would offer a different type of cuisine?
That is correct. You'd have another, seafood, some type of, like pork, barbecue, like, ribs, burgers, just different cuisines.
So it sounds like a lot of y'all's questions is about porta potties, trash, and parking.
And the definite time when these are all going to come in and be built.
So for right now, I can move, like I said, it's a site plan. When the permanent bathrooms are built, the porta potties aren't there. So if we're concerned about porta potties and trash, I can move that right now to that blank corner where we can still access it on the, what is that going to be, the west, on the west side of that?
So it's out of Fifth Street, then
Yes, and that,
this corner out here?
yes, correct. And then
This design is not finalized. You'd like to do this, but
I'd like to do a concept like that. It is, once again, not 100% finalized. Like the dates are not concrete on there. It is a concept plan. It's a concept site plan that we can work off of. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
So does the city, if he's granted a special use permit, when each food truck comes in, will it then require its own sub permit because it is a mobile food truck that can potentially move, be replaced, so the city can keep track that there's no sub brokering of the mobile food court structures, or how does that work? Because once you have a special use permit, where is the policing that it's gonna happen the way it says it's gonna happen? How is that gonna work?
So I'm going to answer your question here in a minute. The first mobile vending unit does not create a food court. It's really when you have two or more, and that's what it actually says. So I think what the plan was trying to do was try to see if the whole concept would work. We know that one would probably, I'm not saying would, I don't vote, would probably be granted by planning commission and then council. But the question is, would a mobile food court actually be approved? And then what we'd have to do is as it's being phased in. So all the things that we talked about, the porta potties, the covered parking, all those things would actually come in when that second unit, when it is created as a court. So then how do we, and that's a really good question, because how do we police it? How do we make sure that if Gary says this is coming in fall of 23, this is coming in, you're right, it would be difficult. We'd have to be on our toes and make sure that he's following the plan. So phasing is always harder than everything being done all at once. So that is a good question.
And just a follow up. So do the mobile food trucks, don't they renew every year and show their insurance?
Every 2 years.
Ownership, just
2
under
years.
Every two.
natural?
2 years.
Every 2
Yes, yes, ma'am.
years.
Every two.
So as each of these food trucks come in, there will be a new special use permit?
No,
It will be automatically granted.
but that'd be permitted. They'd have to be permitted by the city, but they would have to come.
It will not have to come to the CRC.
No, it would not. No, it would not.
especially start with the space and then probably future.
And I'm not suggesting you do this, but if you as a planning commission and the council says, you know what, until we see more information, we're just going to give you the SUP. Let's just say you said, I'm going to give you just the SUP on the unit, then they'd have to come back, but it wasn't notified that way. So right now the request is to have a mobile food court. And then as all those units would come in, we'd let you know, but they wouldn't come back to you.
Have you talked to TxDOT at all yet about access there?
I'd have to get with Andrew and Clint. They're the property owners. Yeah, I don't have an answer for you on that.
Any more questions, commissioners? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to table the blind commotion. I like to think.
Okay, so Lawrence has made a motion to table it. Do I have a second?
And what information would you want him to bring?
I'd like to have a better site plan, number one. We want to take a look at the traffic in that area.
Parking space or parking.
Well, parking will be a part of it, but mainly it's just the traffic. We have a pop text out. This is a text dot route. We don't have to be contacted.
I don't think we should do it at all. I think we should give him an SUP for one unit until he gets ready and can come forward with a better plan and the parking and the text dot agreement, et cetera.
And I understand that point, but this, I mean, this could be bad for Blanco or it could be a great fit for Blanco. And no business owner is gonna wanna come in and do something like this. If they're gonna have to come back to a new P&Z and a new council with new ideas and to ask for these SUPs every time. So we could be missing out on an opportunity for a suit. By doing that, that's the only issue. But I agree, there's a lot of information here, especially in regards to parking and traffic, that could be a detriment to our city.
But at the same time, also, I think if we are not making a decision on this tonight, then I think we should give clear guidance as to what we're looking for to be changed in the proposal.
Well, number one thing I'm concerned about is text dot. I think we need to contact them and find out what kind of problem that you can find with text dot. Or any company. Good on work.
And is that one block, that's one block from the red light?
You know,
Yeah, and the parking and the traffic backup there is my big concern, because of the number of tables you have, plus people coming in at a given time, for it to be profitable, you need to have a lot of people there at peak times. So that could create an issue. I could be wrong, and I'd like to be proven wrong before,
Sure.
Well, I guess on the permit application, UDC says that we need to have a written application to the city. Do we have that with all of the information that's on 1 through 14? I mean, I saw his application, but I didn't see.
You have his application. And we have a set it to 200 feet away. There's a public hearing. This is a legal notice. There isn't a survey as an actual survey, but there's a legal description on there. From the standpoint of submitting information, we minimally met the information. Again, like I mentioned to him before we came, there's a lot of questions, and with anything new, of course, there's going to be a lot of questions that we're going to have to work through it. So the answer is yes, he provided the information as requested, but he needs to provide better information. That's what you're saying. So that's what we're looking for.
I think Loris has a good point in terms of, you need to have an opinion from TxDOT on the viability of having either an exit or an entrance to your food court area on Fourth Street. You could, decide to reverse the traffic flow, you have to have the entrance on Fourth Street and exit on Elm Street. But nonetheless, I think you need to have an opinion from TechStop whether you can do that or not.
Well, on section 415(7) C4, it says no mobile food vendor authorized by SUP shall be enlarged. Also says on 4, development of the mobile food vendor shall not be carried out until the applicant has secured all the permits and approvals required by these regulations, the city code of ordinances, or any permits required by regional, state, federal agencies. So if we do this, it'll be against the code.
Is it possible to move the pavilion more towards the center, put the food trucks around it to turn a quarter of that into parking?
Sure.
I think that would move the trash, that would move the porta potty, give you parking. I mean, I think if he was coming in here asking to put in a restaurant here with decent parking, the TechStop question would still be the same, but it's still, I don't think we'd be asking it. I mean, it'd still be entering the TechStop road, but if the parking was there and the flow of traffic was fine, I think we wouldn't be sitting here asking those same questions. I do think with the way these roads go, pulling one of those 18-wheelers in here is going to be a problem anyways.
Right.
I mean, the trucks are going to be there probably about 7:30, 8:30 in the morning, but so they're not going to deal with parking, so you might as well have a small parking lot. Have a truck pulling there when you don't have any customers anyway.
Sure.
But pulling that truck this direction or pulling it out of here, I mean, I see it twice a week in my truck, and that would be, just in my thought, be a nightmare, but I love the idea. I mean, I just think solving the problem of trash, porta potties, and then creating some parking, it seems like it's plenty of space to make it work. But,
Okay.
Especially pulling in and out morning when you have school. So I do think that I think there needs to be a little bit more information regarding the traffic, parking, because too, if people try to park or park across Fourth and walk across, I don't think there's even a crosswalk there, is there?
No. I do want
That answers that question.
to explain how we handle permitting whenever we see, it's usually not Bureau Veritas that flag, it's usually myself, but we see some kind of driveway that's coming off TechStop, we'll ask them if they approve it. Now, in a lot of different cases, there's existing curb cuts. So in this particular case, there's an existing curb cut. The question is that a curb cut that TechStop would be okay with this specific use? I think it had been a library, it did something before, so it may still be okay, but we don't know that. It probably would be a curb cut they would allow, but sometimes for whatever reasons they have different requirements. They'll say, no, we don't want it here, or whatever, or sometimes it's a drainage issue. So we'll have to touch base with them.
It's very hard to predict.
Very hard.
But I mean, for me, that's the only, we also see what Brent was saying with regard to the layout of it, that can be changed, but you said anyhow, that's not just cut and stone anyhow. But I think you need to clarify with TechStop the egress or the entrance or exit requirements of Fourth Street.
Okay.
If they have anything to say to it, or if they just say, okay, go ahead, fine. But other than that, I think as long as we can move the dumpster away from Fourth Street, the porta potties away from Fourth Street, and find a more concealed location for them, or have some kind of a picket fence around them, so that just they're out of sight. That would help me in looking favorably upon this an SCP request.
Okay.
Having said that, I second the motion of Loris.
Okay, let's restate your motion. Loris, would you please?
Almost forgot it. I think we need to table the motion. Table the proposal for more information from TechStop and anybody else that's involved with this location.
And any other permits required by state and federal agencies, is that right?
Yeah.
You have another question, you said?
No.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I second that.
My question is gonna be, I wanna look at this area. There's a lot of traffic in this area, right across from London. And, we've got trucks that come through there. That might be good for. The fact that there's a lot of traffic there, I mean, it's, you're always location. I mean, that's because it's a good, you know, that's what we're talking about, this location, because of the actual traffic that is there.
And the only issue is, I mean, it's not a commercial property for a reason, and it's a R5 because of that. And we're turning it into a restaurant, basically, if that's what you're asking.
Now, a food truck is allowed in R5.
Right.
Okay, just so we make sure that we know that.
By special use. If it's there.
We have to give them a special use, but it is allowed. And I mean, I know we're having this conversation before we vote on it, but I think we should have all of the required permits and variances before we approve an SUV. We've done this before and we've been stung by it. UDC code says we should have it. I think we should have it.
What other
89.
permits? What other permits are we talking about? I'm sorry.
Well, you have to get text dot, you gotta get that permit. You're going to have to get, you're gonna have to decide if you're going to have 4 or 5 of these. And if you do, you're gonna have to come up with some parking. So any other permits, and if you have a conversation with Warren, you should be able to list all those permits that you will need. But I think we should have all of them. I don't have the list in front of me. I assume that they would be here tonight, but they're not. But I'll make a list if you would like for me to do that.
And I like a better plan, site plan. We won't be in here.
We should have
Be
a,
able to get an acceptance letter for permit, probably too, from TxDOT, without like going in, getting the permit, and then find out, like you're applying with the city, that with your site plan and everything, you should be able to get a confirmation letter from TxDOT that they would approve the permit.
and I don't know that we should be approving an SUP with a hand-drawn, not to scale.
It is to scale. The buildings on there are to scale. I did hand draw it, but it is with an engineer's ruler.
That's fine. Try to look it out. We'll definitely talk to him after, you know, next couple of days and get this worked out, and get this to the next meeting.
Any more discussion, folks? Everybody in agreement? Yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the item number 3 is discussion and take action on approval of variance from section 9.03.183C banners on non-residential property to allow for banners to be displayed all year in the historic district instead of 4 times a year for 30 days each time. And I have something for you, commissioners, for that we what we did in 2020, so that I'll make it a little clearer.
Thank you, Planning Commission. So, you've probably noticed, I've only noticed a couple of them. I didn't notice there's actually 4 banners flying in the historic district. And I didn't know this, but they're not allowed to fly year long. If you actually look at the UDC, they're only allowed to be flying 30 days at a time, 4 times a year. And so, I think there had been a variance that was granted to allow them to run consecutively or something, and that's why you've seen them pretty much year long. But
What we did in 2020, just so you'll understand what we did then, actually did it what we did was the UDC said that they can place a banner up to 30 days, 4 times a year.
Right.
Historic Commission asked for a variance for 90 days instead of 30 days, which we gave them a variance of 90 days. So then they bought an annual permit, which allows them to fly it once every 30 days, 4 times a year. And with the variance, once they get to go 90 days, 4 times a year. That is how they came up with being able to fly it for a year.
Okay. So to clean it up, they're just gonna ask to do it the whole year. That's where we're at. Ryan, you wanna kind of explain this, because if this happened before me and
I don't know what to explain about it other than I did bring one to show you, and I think that it's worth flying down because they are beautiful.
Yes.
And the other issue on it of why it's hard to only put them up for a small period of time is PEC is the only one that's allowed to hang them on the utility poles. And we generally have to give them at least 60 days notice in order to hang them, and 60 days notice in order to take them down. So essentially it ends up being the time constraints of the ordinance we generally can't meet and stay within the regulations. And I just think it's something that's good for the community, good for the historic district, and it's promoting our city, and it's not a personal banner of any sort. So I think it's worth
I love
something
the
we could
banner.
leave up year
The
round.
historic banner in the historic district. I love the banners
Where would the locations be for those banners?
on the,
There are already banners hanging in those locations, and that is 3rd and Main, 4th and Main, 4th and Pecan, and 3rd and Pecan.
and actually we went back last year and updated the UDC code to allow them to hang those banners on those light posts.
Thank you for your time.
And you passed it last year. So.
Okay.
But now, Warren, what we did last year, so your help me out here, we gave him an extension from 30 days to 90 days.
okay.
So that meant that he could fly that 4 times a year at 90 days. But
So we
with,
basically gave them a year to
with
try
an
it.
annual permit, yes.
So
that's
if I
what we
would
allow.
make a motion to allow them to do it for the year instead of 4 times a year?
I have a quick question.
That's not what
Sorry.
it says in the code.
So this ordinance here, is this only for historic, or is this anybody now can have a banner and fly it and get a permit?
Anyone can request a banner, but it's in the historic district, so it would have to be approved by them first.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't know that we want to give them an arbitrary annual unless we give them a variance, an arbitrary annual, which would be, I guess, $100 a year for them then, right?
Yes.
So they'd have 4 banners, be $400 what it cost them.
I don't know if I wasn't here, so I don't know if we made them pay that before or not. Maybe,
Yeah, we
maybe
did.
We did?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I from the administration standpoint, I don't know what I don't know if there would be a problem with letting them fly it every year. I mean, all the time. Most cities do. So, I understand our UDC, but
What would happen if someone else wanted to put a banner up? We would allow it?
well, it depends on the situation. I mean, I'm just saying, usually cities do have banners up in places like downtown for civic pride, those sort of things.
And I attached some last year as well as this year. Like Austin, they charge $200 a pole per week to hang a banner. Aspen charges, they can only do it for 14 days. City of Dallas. I mean,
But the historic district, let me say this again, the historic district is a subset within the city. It represents the city. I just,
And we do accept the permit fee as far as, we did budget that into
Okay.
our budget for that. That part's not.
So anyone can put a banner up?
would have to be approved through the historical commission first because it's in the historical district.
Okay.
Then it can be done, yes.
We're just doing variance just for historic commission for a very specific banner that we're looking at.
And they have approved, and historic commission is approved.
so,
And we're giving you approval, just to clarify in my mind also, that they would be allowed to hang these banners at 4 locations in the city for the duration of 1 year.
For 1 year.
1 year.
Continuously.
One year.
Yes.
They just,
Yeah.
Which they did last
Free
year
up there.
because we gave them the concession last year too. And yes, and then we come back in a year and the reason for that is according to the code and when you read it, is so that the raggedy things are not hanging on the poles, which I know our historical commission wouldn't do that. But I'm just saying that's the reason it's in the code as such and
in answer to your question, that's why it's a variance. So if somebody else came in and said they wanted to do that and it's a specifically different situation, you don't have to say yes just because you said yes to one person. Every property, every situation is different. That's why it's a variance.
Okay, because I was thinking someone could start doing political posting banners. I mean,
So political banners are totally different.
okay.
They're only allowed for 4 days after the election.
You state your motions.
So I will make a motion to approve the variance request for the historical commission for the banners that they have proposed
for 1 year.
for 1 year.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? Okay, so all in agreement? Great, passed. You did it, guys. Great.
Thank you, sir.
You're so welcome.
Looks good, Bella. Okay.
I like them even better than what you had up there before. So, yeah, they look perfect. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay, so item 4. Item 4 is a discussion, no action on a UDC update. All plats submitted for review and approval must include a title report to include ownership, liens, restrictions, easements, and effective date on any plat that's submitted before the city. So is that something you want to address, Warren?
Right, so 4, 5, and 6 are basically all together in the sense that they're all part of the UDC update. I think different people asked for them, which is why 4 and 5 are separated out. So when you go through 6 and you have individual things that the commissioners want to talk about, you'll talk about. But 4 was something I actually asked for a few weeks ago, and that's before I knew about the situation that some of the folks mentioned tonight. But I've been a planning director for 10 years, and I ran plats before that. And one of the things that every town requires when you do any kind of platting, because that's an official record. So let's talk about that. When you do a plat, whether it's a plat that's a plat that comes before you, or there's just a plat that is just administrative, it's a subdivision. It's an actual subdivision plat that's recorded at the county clerk's office. So as you know, it becomes part of the record. So one of the things that it's really necessary to have is necessary to have a title report. In some places they call it city planning letter, but specifically what this report has, it's done by a title company, or it can be done by an attorney. Generally, we like it done by a title company, but it can be done by an attorney, and it states the following: ownership, liens, restrictions, easements, and effective date. And the reason why that is done is so that you don't have a replat or a plat done that doesn't follow the restrictions, or you're platting on top of an easement, or you're basically letting someone plat property that they don't own, or there's some kind of weird nuance that you didn't find. This is pretty much a no-brainer. We need to include that in the UDC. But the problem from an administration standpoint is anything that isn't listed in the UDC, you can't ask for. So, for example, when I was in Sealy, I wanted some certain things, and even though they're really simple, they'd be like, well, where is it? So that's part of the issue. So that's a really simple issue, but we do need to have a title report for any plat, for any kind of subdivision.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
We discussed this at last year, because I pulled up the last year's minutes.
Okay.
And so that was discussed then, it just didn't get passed.
Okay.
But I'm in total agreement with item number, with the UDC, with the plat update. I mean, that's number 4.
Yeah.
I think 5 is a separate issue.
5 is a separate issue now.
4, as far as I'm concerned, is a no-brainer. That needs to be done, period.
Any motion, commissioners?
I make a motion to approve that for any plat submissions, that title work must be done that would include ownership, liens, restrictions, easements, and effective date.
So that means that with the UDC update, as you're progressing with that will be included in the UDC
It'll be
update.
included in the UDC
Yes,
update,
ma'am.
yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And we'll also have it, I think we should put it in section 1.13 in definitions, and also in section 3.6, 1B, which is in subdivision related applications. But we can actually place that on our list of updates for the year.
Yes.
Thank you, Warren, for bringing that up. So we have a motion from Lynn.
Yes. Second. And we're approving basically that we included in our update.
That'll be included in our
Yes.
update, yes. All in agreement? Unanimous. Okay, so the last thing we have, number 5, is discussion, no action on approval of update to the UDC section 4.6 supplemental use regulations. C, outdoor live music is allowed between the hours of 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. D, outdoor live music cannot be performed in the public right-of-way, sidewalks in the historic district. So I'm going to ask if anyone is a business owner or operator that they recuse themselves for this particular item.
So basically.
Definitely not for the discussion. Really breaker on, okay.
But basically that means, for example, the bigger circle would not be able to be done.
And all 300 can play music on their patio anymore.
Well, since you are general manager of Redbud, and this is going to directly affect you with your new beer garden, I really believe you need to recuse yourself on this discussion.
No, you don't. I wouldn't recuse myself from discussion.
Give them the vote.
Yeah.
So let me give you a little background, and that's up to the commissioner if he wants to recuse himself. But I will say this request came from the mayor. One of the things that we were looking at is whether outdoor live music should be allowed. Currently, it is not. Probably happens anyway. We want to look at that, but just like everything else, it's a little bit more complicated than we just allow music, because you know, what's the volume that's allowed, what's, you know, and I can't think of the decibels. I mean, those are different things that I couldn't tell you. That's not my forte. So that's why we're here at P&Z, to kind of workshop that and discuss, you know, first of all, do you want to discuss that? Do you want certain types of decibels? Are you looking at maybe different hours, or maybe not 11, maybe starts at 10, maybe it matters if it's on the weekend or the weekday. So those are very nuanced things that you probably need to discuss from the standpoint of bringing business in and things like that. I'm, you know, administration's generally for it, but there probably needs to be some real discussion on what type of nuanced things you're looking for.
Well, I have a problem with this. I mean, as chairman, I have a problem with this. I mean, a commissioner. If we change the UDC code to allow outdoor live music between the hours of 8:11 a.m. and 8:11 p.m., that means that the Redbud, the Old 300 Barbecue, Lakeville River Pizza, Uptown, Texas Cannon Brewery, Old Iron Horse Saloon, Chef's Club, Hacienda, Jose's Kitchen, and any new food and drink establishments that move into Blanco can have outdoor live music. Now, in table 4.2, it can only be in C1 and historical district with an SUP. And in the definitions on 1.13, it says a designated area suitable for conduction of a live concert, a vocal or musical instruments performance, which can often be heard beyond the property line of the premise. And if you look at 4.2 for food and drink, it is allowed in R5 with an SUP, C1, and HT, and historicals permitted. Now, if you look at table 4.2 and 4.15 for mobile food vendors, it says the noise level of mechanical equipment or outside sound equipment used in association with any mobile food truck may not exceed 70 decibels when placed at the property line that is across the street or abutting a residential area. And I have attached, and I will give this to, give you a copy, Warren. I've attached where I pulled up in www.cdc.gov, and it says the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and the World Health Organization, WHO, recommend maintaining environmental noises below 70 decibels for 24 hours, 75 decibels for 8 hours to prevent noise-induced hearing loss. And then if you look at their list, it says washing machines are 70 decibels. Gas-powered lawnmowers are 80 to 85 decibels. Motorcycles are 95 decibels. Sporting events such as football games are 105 to 110 decibels. Loud entertainment venues such as nightclubs, bars, and rock concerts are 105 to 110 decibels. So the noise level would be way out of line, especially if you have more than one business that's doing this outside with live band. And I just think this whole thing about removing that from the UDC code without a good reason is not a good thing.
So just to clarify, you did have Old Iron Horse Saloon on here, but they're already allowed to be operating.
No, they can
Bars
have,
are
no, they can have, actually what they said was, if you look in there, it says that they can have music not outdoor music. I can look it up and tell you exactly what they said.
I will say from a business aspect, it does seem like, I mean, I've enjoyed the Picker Circle. I've enjoyed all 300 playing music on their patio. I don't think those have been a bad thing for our town.
A bar or nightclub, outdoor live music cannot be performed in the public right of way or on the sidewalk. And then B was no amplified sound, period, is allowed between the hours of 11 and 12 p.m. the following day.
Right, so tell them anything about that on. Yes.
No, amplified sound, did not say
Between
outdoor.
11 and 12, I thought.
No amplified, only amplified sound, no outdoor music.
Okay.
When you hear, look, I want to tell y'all, I put a map on the back of your little deal. I live on Blanco Avenue. And the venue out at the park, Yet Park, I started to say Yet Park, when they crank up their music, we can hear it on Blanco Avenue. Now, it doesn't keep us awake at night, but I'm just telling you that far away, we can hear it. So we're going to be in town, in the historic district, and within a 4-block area, people are not going to be able to sleep at 11 o'clock at night. It's going to be loud. It's like a football game, folks. Now, I've said my piece, and so y'all talk about it.
Personally, I think, like the Picker Circle, that type of outdoor music is wonderful. I've enjoyed it, since I've come here to Blanco, and been a big contender of that.
And it's being removed also.
But
It's the next
I
one.
also saw in the UDC that technically it's not allowed at the moment, But, and I think we spoke to that earlier also, Warren, if we have a code and disobey the code, then that's not the right way of doing it. It should either the code should be changed or it should be enforced to do what the code says. But personally, I think that type of outdoor music, I think is wonderful to have.
Well, it's not
It should be
amplified.
allowed.
It's really,
It should be allowed.
you know what, that's like 2 or 3 people are sitting down strumming their guitar, and you've got the people sitting around talking about it. But if y'all don't want that, that's fine. I'm just saying that is a whole different ball game.
No, but I'm
That's
saying right
allowed.
now, the UDC does not allow that technically.
It said
Even
they
that does not allow that.
don't allow outdoor live music. So I guess if they're strumming their guitar, they better
That's
put it
live
up.
music. That's live music.
Yep.
So technically, that's not allowed, but I think we should allow that. Should we allow, like the Red Bud Cafe has, the on Friday, Saturday,
Inside.
Sunday, indoors, that kind of music on their porch? No. I think that's, definitely too loud.
What about allowing for acoustic or non-amplified music outdoors?
Yeah, I think makes sense.
If you're going to not let them pick on the sidewalk,
Well,
you
I
certainly can't have.
I'll come with a pitchfork to take that in, but,
Well, I think it's already been taken away.
yeah.
Because this isn't the only place that you see the outdoor music cannot be performed on the right of way. It's in other places in the UDC code. So that's not the only place that it is.
Would it make more sense to do a decibel level at a time?
Yeah.
Right there.
Wouldn't that put the parameters that are more appropriate on there?
I would think so, yes.
If I could say from an enforcement standpoint, it'd be easier to look at things like hours and whether you're talking weekdays or weekends. So for example, if you think about business or whatever, and you say, oh, okay, on a Thursday or Wednesday, we should be done by 9 p.m. because most restaurants and businesses are closed by then anyway, and people are going to sleep earlier. And if you look at the weekends, want you to look at this from a nuanced standpoint. If it's something you want, make sure that we're answering all the questions. So there is a difference. I mean, I don't know if we can, I mean, amplification is one thing, but to say how many decibels, I don't have any equipment that actually, measures that. At least I don't think so.
You need to measure that, so.
Well,
And
I
is a
can just-
microphone amplified? A microphone would be amplified.
I could just say, if it's as loud as a football game, I wouldn't want to be
No.
living in the next block.
I agree with you.
Well, we do have residential people downtown.
Yes, we do. And it's going to be
Yeah.
within two blocks of where any of our restaurants downtown are. Now, since this is in the Historic Commission area, did you talk to them about this, Brandon?
That's what you do about what?
Did you talk to the Historical Commission in regards to any of this?
I just got this today.
No. You did not talk to them previously regarding your beer garden that's going in?
No, not specifics on that kind of stuff. No.
If you'd like to recognize Wendy Cambridge, she might have a few words to say.
Wendy, could you speak for us? Speak for the Historical Commission.
My name is Wendy Cambridge. I'm on the Historical Commission, and so much. Wow. For instance, when the Redbud came to us a year ago with their COA to build the beer garden, our responsibility was to look at the exterior design. Were they staying historic? Were they going within the codes and safety and fire and all of that, which they were. But one of the discussions was during that meeting that we were concerned about the noise because there are homes right across the street. And the public had been coming to us regarding that noise that might be coming out of that building later at night with the amplified music, as well as parking. Those two issues were of concern to us, but not within our purview. So when it was presented to us, Ms. Ryder said, we understand that we're gonna stay within the city's parameters in regards to sound. That's in our video, our meeting. And no more was said, but we did qualify on the approved COA that we had concerns about the noise level and we had concerns about parking. And being in the historic district, we want to protect and maintain that historic feel. And whatever's on the books right now seem to be okay with the Red Bud. I'm only speaking to them because that's the only experience we've had. And I'm open to any questions you need.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
does this Red Bud Cafe have outdoor amplified music?
No,
idea. We have talked about putting in a small beer garden and pizza place in the back
Okay.
and doing kind of the same deal that we were doing inside, but nothing late and nothing real loud. So,
well, it's pretty loud in there.
well, sure, but we haven't even gotten to that point yet. So this has nothing to do with me. I don't know why I'm being involved in
No,
this.
no.
Well, because you're a general manager of Redbud, that's why.
I said, who wants to change the music to outside? Because right now it says no outdoor live music.
So in tonight's meeting, the mayor had just asked that we make that a discussion item. So she'd asked that it be a discussion item.
Oh,
Okay. So I mean, you can discuss it and you can look at different nuances and you can figure out whether now maybe we don't want to do that or we want to change it. But that was a request from her.
I think it's a good thing to do because it's something that the city, we need to have something that kind of fits more with the way our city operates and how the people enjoy the city. And music is part of that. And if you don't do something, people get really angry. And but I understand the concerns of the residential people living around it.
And that's why you have to look at setting limits and things like that. So you can't just say music anytime you want. I mean, you've got to look at weekends, weekdays, what type of, measurable volume we can look at, decibels.
Just a question for what's the historic commission position on like Acre Circle on this, in public right of ways? I mean, do you all have a strong opinion on that?
That has never come up before us, so I can't really answer that directly as to the commission's response.
It seems like that, if we're making rules for the historic district, the commission should be involved in, making them.
And we enjoy being part of that. When things happen and then we find out after the fact and it does affect actually our historic district, that's disconcerting. So we'd love to be involved in any discussions in regards to the historic district itself.
So we can put that on your next meeting,
Put it on that list.
and that's before this meeting,
Sure.
for next month. So,
It is.
yes, so that would be a perfect time.
Good.
For you to
We're
discuss.
on the
that.
last Monday of the month. And we're in the first.
Yes.
Great. That would be great, Wendy. Thank you.
Personally, from my opinion, I think, that it would make sense to allow non-amplified music between the hours of 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. Also in the public right of way, on the sidewalks, on the grass area there around the courthouse. I think that would be nice and should be allowed.
And that's
Right
not
now,
a
it's
band.
not
That's
allowed.
not a band. That is the citizens sitting there with strumming on a guitar and having a conversation with each other. So it's a little different than a band, I think. There aren't any of them over there. I promise you, they can't even sing good, but we have a good time.
I'm just saying that would be my opinion. Say the hours 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Non-amplified music of whatever nature there is, whether it's one or two or three or four people, singing in harmony or non-harmony, whatever it is, and having a good time.
So you think 9 p.m. is
9
fine?
p.m. I think
Okay.
11 p.m. in my opinion is too long.
Do we have a sound ordinance time?
I have not found one. I can check on that for when we come back and do our workshop, but I have not found a sound ordinance, which I brought up the sound because I couldn't visualize the decimals and how it would affect the neighborhood. That's the only reason I brought that up, because I don't live there, but there are people that live like within a block of that area. We're not, we're not like Austin or San Antonio or Chicago or New York City. I mean, when we have people that's in an area that's immediately around our historical district and our downtown district, we have to also be aware that they're living there. That's their home also. So for us to not take that into consideration, I think is a detriment to the residences.
But what I'm saying is, I think, not in contradiction to what you're saying. Yes, we want to be respectful of the residents, but at the same time, also we want to be welcoming and inviting to people visiting Blanco and enjoying coming to visit in Blanco. Eating, and then they see something impromptu happening on the courthouse lawn there, and be there, and for that to be a potentially allowed activity rather than something that probably not enforce it, but at least is not allowed.
No, I think the difference is just talking about food and drink establishments. I mean, we do concerts on the courthouse grounds because it's a different kind of venue, so it is allowed in certain times. So like when we do concerts for Marigold Fest, we'll have bands throughout the day that'll be
Any city-sponsored event, festivals, that kind of thing can be done within the city.
Okay. All right. I've said my piece.
So we'll consider that with our UDC update at this point. We don't have to have any opinion tonight, but
And when was this? This was just added, correct, to the agenda, right? Was that, or this wasn't? So business owners and residents haven't really had it, don't even know this being proposed.
No, this was not something that this was not a request from the public. This was.
Right, no, I understand.
Right, so no, the answer is no. We haven't actually discussed this with business owners or or the public. Obviously, when you actually do a UDC update, there'll be a public hearing on it, but but that's a good point. We probably need to have some outreach and get some other opinions other than just, sometimes administration, staff, we all kind of just talk to each other, but we do need to probably reach out a little bit and make sure we cover our bases.
So we'll table. I guess we need
Well,
to,
there's no action to be taken here anyhow. I mean,
no action for until, yeah, I'll just put no action. Okay. So that will move us into discussion and no action on UDC update items, which we'll be reviewing. And then before we get into that though, let's see if we can set a time that everybody will be available for a workshop in October for the UDC update discussion. You mentioned last time that y'all wanted to have a workshop where we could have people in as we discuss this. And my question was that we needed to at least have some idea of what we were going to be discussing. So we were supposed to all have brought something tonight that will start us off on this UDC update. So is there some time in October that's not good for anybody, or do you want to email me? Do you want to make it on next week, 2 weeks from now? I mean, I like for it to stay on Monday. At least we have the same date. But doesn't have to be.
17th. Is that too late?
I have a question though. Will there be updates presented during this workshop, or are people just gonna come in and state things they'd like to have changed in the UDC? So those items would be considered later.
And what I've done before doesn't mean I have to. I will defer to whatever y'all want. What I've done before is we come in on a workshop and we begin to present things. If anybody in the audience wants to present something, I ask them to raise their hand. I do not want to have a gobble where we can't understand them or hear them. So if they raise their hand, we will call on them and let them have a comment about what we're doing, or add to if that's the case, then we can consider that. Because we want to bring in as much as we can for the citizens to come in and be able to voice their opinion. But it's going to have to be done on a basis that we can still get something done. But we need to have our things ready that we think that needs to go in there. So we need to start that
Well, that
tonight.
was my comment. If the workshop's gonna be where there are some ideas for changes, we need to have that done first. If the workshop's just gonna be where citizens come in with their ideas and lead the ideas, then it could be sooner, the workshop.
Well, I think that was the whole conversation last month. Is it's hard for us to have the opinions of 7 of us to make big changes to the UDC, whereas we've got hundreds of members of the community that might have specific frustrations that they've seen that we might have not encountered because our flags didn't push us down the same path.
Right.
So giving them an opportunity to come in and point out those 29 things that very separately they found, give us a good starting point to come here, voice a little bit more than just our.
I agree. I agree with that.
But the thing is, are they gonna be able to get documents of the UDC that they can actually look at and study? I mean, I have a hard time myself outdated stuff that I've got.
Yes.
Will the UDC's posted on the website under the new resident resources? So they can.
But UDC's posted. I mean, they can go to
Yeah.
UDC or they can go to Franklin, either one, can they not, on the website?
So, yeah, what I was supposed to ask you, and I actually asked 2 different questions. Talk to Lori, our city secretary, about making sure that you have the same ordinance. So who does not actually have a hard copy of the ordinance? Okay,
I
so,
only had to download it.
But I used the-
okay. So would it be helpful, I'm just asking, would it be helpful to have, I'm just gonna assume Laura doesn't have one either, or doesn't have a paper copy. Would it be helpful to get 5 hard copies of the ordinance?
Well, if we're going to do that, I think you should get 7.
Just get it all?
And let me
Okay.
just state why.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not as concerned with the page as some of the commissioners are. I think that we need to be looking at table and item because they don't change. Every time the UDC gets updated, the page numbers will change. But if all 7 of us have the same copy, then if they are updated, at least we're looking at the same thing so that when Brendan says such and such and so on page 79, we don't have to go, okay, well, wait a minute, that's 96 to me. That's the problem that we're having.
So I'll have Lori do all 7. We talked about that today. We talked about that before. We may have to go out for printing to do that, but so this is really important. The other thing is, and I hate to piggyback and make this more complicated than it is, but the 281 Overlay Committee, if you remember Tommy McClung, who was a project manager, made a presentation. I think Brandon did most of this talking, but they went over what we call the draft code for the overlay district on 281 for the zoning. He had asked that if you had a special meeting that he be invited to make one quick presentation just to show you the draft code. We're reviewing it now. I think myself and maybe the mayor, maybe a couple other people, but so that he has more eyes on it. Would that be something we could piggyback onto? If you do have a meeting for the zoning, and this would actually fit because this is zoning, this is a overlay zoning. Then
Sure.
Okay, I'll let him, whatever you
anything,
decide, then I'll
Yeah.
let him know that
That's
it's
perfect.
available.
As soon as we get the date down, is it the 17th, which is on a Monday? Agree with everybody?
Right.
Columbus Day is next week. You weren't planning on doing next week, were you?
No.
Okay.
So is everyone okay with the 17th then?
What time would it be?
Same time, same place, and I'll be here on time. I won't be so late. I'm sorry about that. Apologize again. I don't know why I said 7 o'clock. I was just like, it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah, so 6:30 on
On Monday,
Monday.
10/17
So good.
at 6:30. Is it all right with everybody?
Yeah. They would be here.
Yes. Now, I'm going to give y'all something because I worked really hard on this because this is something that everyone here said that they would like to see, is they would like to see the table of contents in more detail. Well, I worked really hard on this, so if y'all find anything wrong with it, just let me know, knowing that it was quite a job. But I'm not done with it. I think it's a little too tight. I need to open it up a little bit where it will be easier to read. But what I did is I took the table of contents that we had. I added some to it. Pass that down to the board. I added some additional things to it. And for each line item, I gave it a table, a section, and a item. So that if you go down and look at anything that's on here, you would be able to go, and don't worry about the page numbers that's out at the side because they're not your page numbers, they're only mine. But, you can look at the topic and you can go to the section and the item number that discusses that particular item.
This is really good work. I mean, this really does. It's very helpful.
I hope it's helpful. I need to spread it out a little bit, but at the time I was more concerned about getting the information in than making it much easier to read, but I will spread it out some. But like we were just talking tonight about annex, well, you can go to, you can run your fingers down and you can look at newly annexed territory and see this in zoning section 4.23E. So you know exactly where to go to look for what's in the UDC code that discusses that. But I do want y'all to look at it, look at your notes. If there's something that we need to add, we can add it. make another place for it. If you find something that's not in here that you want to see, then we can fix it.
You have another copy of this? That I can give to Laura?
I just gave mine to Warren, but I
Okay,
can make you a
no,
copy.
no, just make-
I can just make her a copy. Go ahead and keep that. He said he can make a copy. You got a copy. Now, what I did in addition to that, so then y'all can, then I'll be quiet because I did not have time to do some of the things that I wanted to do, but I did want to get these done. This also is table 3.1. And what this shows, and you've seen this many times, you've looked at it many times, I've looked at it many times, and then I've just bypassed it. Because when you look at table 3.1, and you have one too, right? Warren. And here's one for, yeah, this one's for Warren. There's an extra one for you. When you look at that table, if you don't have a section and an item, did you get one?
Yeah, here, yeah.
Yeah, that's yours. I thought you wanted this for Laurie.
Oh, okay.
So I've looked at this table many times, and then I have to go out and hunt. Okay, it's talking about the UDC text amendment, and it tells me that it is an administrative review, and it's also a planning review, and the city council has the final say on it. But I had no clue where to go, so I added section and item so that you can turn right to it on the UDC code and take a look at it. That's what I spent my time on, folks. Now, Warren gave us the subdivision. I mean you gave us the what did you call this? It's the forms that Matt Lewis put together. And so again, I looked these up. And so when I look at this and say, oh, concept plan, where do I go? Okay, so I put it, I would like Warren for us to have a heading of section and item on any kind of forms that we put out.
So the simple city forms haven't been adopted yet. If there are any comments, then we need to, because we're gonna meet with Mr. Lewis probably in the next week or two, probably with the mayor, and make sure that these forms, which we've paid for already, are going to do exactly what it is that you want them to do.
And I think, oh, that's great. And I know that I haven't studied this as much as I should have because I got tied up in some other things. But all I'm saying is, whenever we see one of these, if it has section and verse on it, it has much more meaning than to look at it and wonder what that includes. It took me a while to flip through the UDC code just to figure out, let me see, where do I go with this? Like a final plat. Where do I go with the final plat? Well, if it's on your form, it's much more workable if we see that. So that's what I'm working on, trying to get all that, and then I can give it to Warren and he can run with it. I didn't give y'all a copy of this because but we'll get it. I ran out of time and paper and ink.
And any things that we want to add to it, then we'll tell Matt Lewis and his team, hey, these are, we want to put, these chapters and verse on here, and then they'll update it. So we're still in the process. They've done 90% of the work, but we're still in the process of updating exactly what we want.
I was looking at some of the documents that attached to it, and I have some questions for it, but not tonight.
Sure.
Because I'm not through. But I think that we also need to look at when we do that, we need to say, okay, I know where this administrative plat is, but what about this document back here that they're going to fill out, this permit or whatever it is. And so we do have to look a little deeper than just the front cover. Okay. So what else? Anybody else bring anything up tonight?
Well, I have the same thing I brought up last time about possibly looking at some of the dates within the code regarding responses. And if we could somehow make the dates more consistent for everyone, citizens and the city. So like some say 11 days to respond, others say 20, some say 15. So where it's possibly not a state law for the response time, if we could try to make those all consistent, then it's real easy.
Unless the state
Yeah.
Unless it's state law, we can try to make it more consistent.
So-
Yes, and I think some of them do need time, because if you have 11 days and by the time you mail, I mean, it may not reach the citizen until like 3 days before their response time starts.
Would you bring some of those issues, specific dates that you want us to look at? In
And
areas.
the only item with having things more consistent, I think it makes the code easier to understand. So when you look through there at some of the, I don't want to call them necessarily non-desirable businesses, but like it has the correctional, waste services, some of the adult businesses, and those don't all have the same distance that they need to be from residential. Like waste services, I believe it said it can be 250 feet from a residence,
Mhm.
and a correctional could be 500. But then there's some other ones that are like 750
Right.
or 1,000. So I sort of feel like we should sort of take a look at those and maybe push those sort of out to where those other ones got pushed, potentially. So I would think a correctional would be out sort of at that same distance of 750 feet from a residence.
So we can look at that, but we'll have to make sure that sometimes things that come into the UDC came from other ordinances.
Okay.
So we'll double check that. So for example, I think what you're talking about, a 750, I think is a different ordinance from a different time, and maybe it is good to just look at all that and try to make it, more reasonable or more uniform. But there may be a reason why we'll flesh that out. I'll take a look at all those
Well, I'm
things.
thinking that probably no one's touched a correctional,
Sure.
or touched a waste service, but and touched some of those other ones. So it just looked like some of those other ones were real close, and then other ones are way far out.
And it depends on what zone they were in, because some of them are in different zones, such as we just passed the vaping ordinance. That's 750 feet. But I saw that a bar was like 1,000 feet, if I'm not mistaken, from something. But the difference there is the type of the type of development that we're looking at versus what zone it's in. So we have to be careful that we don't say, well, we just want them all to be 750 because we can remember them. That can't be what we're looking for.
And I do agree though with Lynn's point with especially when we look at enforcement, we have someone that's been helping us with that. But when we look at that, it's got to be something that's somewhat easy to enforce. If you have rules that are complicated and don't really make sense, then it's harder to do, as you know. So,
Absolutely.
So like for
Making it uniform doesn't mean everything has to be exactly
No.
the same. You could have like 250 and 750 type,
Yeah.
but not 250, 300, 400.
Right.
500,
Absolutely.
750,
Absolutely, yeah.
So like
That
I
may
just
be-
typed that page number, so I have to redo those.
Yeah, okay.
Because I just put page 115 to 122. It had things like correctional facility, bars, scrapyard, waste services. Some of those are 200 feet, 500 feet, and 750 from residential. It's already talked
Yeah.
about.
okay.
You bring it up. I mean, that's a great idea for us to look at. This is the time to do it so that we can get it updated correctly.
Definitions too.
And definitions,
Yes.
all the definitions that we asked to be put in the UDC code from last time in 2021 is not in there because I spent an hour today checking them. They are not there. And so when we put those in 2022, well, number one, I think when the UDC is updated, it should have an ordinance attached to it, an ordinance number, so that when it goes in the UDC, we can go back and say when that was done. Whereas right now, it's just a date. It's 3/8/2022. That's when that ordinance was passed by the city council.
I'm gonna say this so that I keep all this track kind of straight. When we have the workshop, she's gonna love this, but I think I'll have the city secretary here too, so that
You
we
would
can,
love it? Yes.
so we can make sure, because she's gonna be the one that's gonna understand, how we codify it and be able to answer those questions for you, because I'm vaguely aware of how we codify things, but not the way a city secretary would. So we'll make sure she's at this next meeting.
Tell her that we would really appreciate her being here.
Yeah, we'll do it. You bet.
She does a great job.
She's doing great.
Is anybody else? Okay, so Lynn's gonna work on dates, among other things. Do y'all have anything that's particular that you're going to, that you want to, I mean, I want to address things like, fine minimums. I think that we have fines, and I haven't checked them all yet, but I will before the 17th. We have various fines throughout the UDC code. And those fine minimums, in my mind, shouldn't be any less than the state minimum. Whereas we do have some now that the state minimum is much, not much higher, but higher than what our minimum fine is. And actually, I was talking to some of our policemen. And so if we can look at those fine minimums and just make in there that it's what we have or the state minimum, at least the state minimum. I just think that would be a big step for the city. And then if the state changes it, of course, then we would have it changed, that amount changed. The other thing I would like to look at for y'all, just so you'll know, is metal containers. I think we really need to look at that. We need to get a handle on it. We need to have some conversation about it. This is a great time for us all to talk about it. We need to put something in there that that allows us to rule on metal containers.
And I agree, because it's not, language in there is not very,
No, it's not.
you know, I mean, I've got an attorney's opinion on it, but it's not easy to enforce the metal container. Jonathan tells me that because based on that, you know, there's other things you can look at, but it's got to be written better if we really want to enforce it.
Right. And we did, you know, this is a great
Or
time
if we
for
don't.
us all to discuss and get some input from the citizens
Sure.
on it.
Okay.
The other thing that I want to ask for is I would like for us to be able to see all commercial building permits. I'm not asking Warren for all the permits, but if it's a commercial building and we're going to give it a permit, I think it should come through planning and zoning. That's why we're here, to do some background and some digging before it goes to city council or administration. So that's the things on my list to bring to you, plus whatever else.
I have a big item I'm going to want to bring up on the administration side of it, and I'll explain why. So under, and I'm going to use Susan's new nifty tool here, which I think is section 6.4 parkland and open space. Obviously, our ordinance also goes into the ETJ as well, extraterritorial jurisdiction. Remember that because we don't actually have control over zoning out in the ETJ, but we can require other things that would help not have as much density. And so one of the things I'd like to look at, and again, this is nuanced, you can say, no, this is not what we want, but the parkland dedication right now currently, well, it says for 100 units, it's 1 acre of parkland dedication, or actually it says half an acre for 50, but basically it's 1 acre, 100. And I believe that the fee in lieu of, so you can do a fee in lieu of providing that parkland is, I believe, 300 or 350. What a lot of places have done, I'll say the city of Houston, and then we got this done in Sealy, is we required 1.8 acres for every 100 units for parkland dedication instead of one for 100. The reason for that is not just so that you have more parkland for your town or for the surrounding area. It's also because zoning does not, basically our UDC goes for the whole our whole area, including the ETJ, but not any zoning. So we can't say, so for example, we can't say that because there's no R1, no R2, whatever the ETJ, but we can actually add some things that make the fact that we don't have so much density, so we don't have 5 or 6 units per acre. So that if you have enough parkland dedication, we've already adopted Austin's drainage manual. We do things so that we keep the density relatively low for this community. And that seems what most people here want, is a lower density and not a higher density. That's an idea, and you may not like it, but that's going to be something that administration will kind of bring forth, and we'll have a lot more information at the next meeting.
Great.
1.8 per 100 units instead of 1 for 100. Thanks.
Great. Any more conversation, commissioners? Comments, conversation?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Is everybody in agreement? All right, we will adjourn at 8:40.